Hello again. Once more, welcome to Leopard Street, into the cellar. Now, as you saw in the previous video, I have a little bit of an electrical problem. I'm not fixing that in this episode. This is Friday when I'm filming this. This will be going out Saturday. I have here a nice shiny glossy piece of wood, which is going to be the new electrical panel for the layout. I'm going to cover exactly what I'm doing in the next one because I can't see the bit of wire I was looking to use as an example. As I showed, this layout is in a ring configuration. There's 8 boards that go around the edge. Each board has its own little electrical panel, which if I can sort of bring down here and say, that's an electrical panel. If we look under here, there's a jumper cable. Yeah, that's part of the problem. Each board has got one of those panels. The diagonal one that goes across the middle hasn't, well, it's got the panel, but it's not built yet. But it will be. So there's 8 boards going round. Power comes in over there. So I have the power box on the wall. Wires come out the bottom of that. They go into the board in the corner. That daisy chains to the one in the middle. Daisy chains to the one behind me. Daisy chains to that one. And it goes both ways round. Mostly. There's a 5-volt logic bus that goes the whole way. There's a DC ground. There's a 12-volt DC auxiliary bus that goes around and used for lighting. There are the 2 DCC wires. They do the rounds. And then going that way, there's a 15-volt DC, which drives the board, the Arduino with the DCC-EX board on it. And coming the other way around, there's a 5-volt power bus. That drives the relays, it drives the servo motors. This is why when I broke the connector over here, all of the points switched off. Because they all go around that way. And obviously I've broken the power. Brilliant, because it stops the relays chattering, it stops the servos going mental, and if the boards are resetting, it doesn't matter. That's changing, and I'm going to cover that over the weekend. Basically, I'm going to a spur system. I'm going to have a central hub, hence that board, and then a wire to each board from there. And they're not going to be the plug and socket connections. It's going to be hardwired via screw terminals and connectors, but hardwired at the ends and continuous wire. So I'm hoping I've killed the volt drop issue. Anyway, that's the next video. This video, you may notice that board is missing and it's actually mounted up over here. I actually came down to do this the other day. When I got down here, I realised I'd made a slight cock up. This bit was installed, but it wasn't painted yet, which meant I had to wait until I could paint it. The board's on its side, clamped to the desk. It's a lot easier to work on when it's like this. What I need to do is get some wires to this board. This is the job for tonight. I've got, let's tilt you down a little bit further. There are 5 sets of drop wires. There's 4 electrical blocks on this section. A deep dive into block detection is coming. I was going to put the block detection boards, these little DTC2s on here. I've got the mounts printed to do it. Lovely shade of purple, thanks to the new printer. So the idea was I'll put a couple of those on here and I can sort it out. I'm not doing that until I've got the new power bus system in, and I haven't got the controllers and things to put on here anyway. But I've got this board out, I've got it mounted, so I'm going to do it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to terminate all of these wires. Now, part of the problem with this section is there's track on the other side of it, and there's track that runs underneath here. So these wires can't be left just hanging. I can't like bring them up here and leave this flat. It'll catch on trains. Trains don't like that. So this all needs terminating. So it's going to mean putting some cable clips in and what have you, and then bringing them over here. Now, the idea is these are going to terminate somewhere around here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a connector block in, and I've got to terminate them. Feed 4 is 2 sets of wires. It's 2 feeds. Now, these little boards, these have got slightly different adapters. I'm going to have to build some of the other ones. Need ferrules to go into there. Getting those to connect multiple ones of these is a little bit awkward. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to mount a screw terminal block here. All of these wires are going to terminate into this screw terminal block, and even the ones from over here have been cut long enough to do this. So I'm going to fit this, and we'll get on with it. Now I've got the terminal block is here. Somewhere around here there is a box of screws. What I did here, I put these wooden battens in. This is only 6mm ply. If I put screws through this, it's going to be a problem because they'll stick out the top. And at some point, I'll put a paw on them, and that'll make it hurt. And I don't like. I'm allergic to pain. I'm not one of these people who likes that sort of thing. So yeah. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is pop a screw into that. This won't take very long, I hope. So that goes into this. I hope it won't take very long because I don't think the battery on this thing is going to last if it does. So I'm going to put that about there. Let that bite, and then screw it in. Now I use these terminal strips quite a bit. There's dozens of them on the layout, and I've got loads more. I've got some bigger ones as well coming for the new panel. Well, I say coming for the new panel. They're here. Everything for the new electrical panel system is here. That's in there, and I think that's near enough to the end of the piece of wood. It's actually split it. I don't care. If you're going to use these, quick tip: nip up all of the connectors. Now I'm going to do the exact opposite at the moment. I'm going to wind them out because I'm about to put things into them all. If you don't, that one's already out. If you don't nip them up, what you find is you've come along one morning, there's a loose wire hanging down that you look at with a curious expression, and then you notice there's a screw on the floor. Or more probably, there's the little washer on the floor, and you can't find the screw. And you look at it and you go, oh, yeah. Anyway, so feed 1. This is feed 1 from all the way over here. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go feeds 1. Well, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And while I'm here, I'm actually going to label them all. I'm going to do it on this bit of wood here so I can see what I'm doing. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And all of the blue wires are going to come into the end ones, which are going to be common. They're going to come into one of the end ones. What I'm then going to do later, I'm going to put a bus rail across the top. I'll have a blue wire come out, a brown wire come out, a long length of wire. I can then refit this board. I can connect those 2 bits of wire to the layout, and I can run a train. And that's the goal for tonight. I want to run a train. So what I need is somewhere around here. I know I have because I saw them earlier. I have, incidentally, I'm just going to turn this around. I have some tidying up to do as well. Now, I'm mentioning I have some tidying up to do. I mean, it's obvious I have. Because if I mention it, now I've told you there's tidying up that needs doing, dear viewer. Hopefully I'll actually get around to doing it rather than just looking at it and going, yeah, I'll do that some other time. While I'm waffling, what I'm looking for, I've got the crimp. Here we are. Looking for the bag of these things. These are the red ones. Now, I've been informed by a viewer the colours coding on these is, it's for the wire size. And I actually found a box of them in all sorts of different sizes. So yeah, these red ones, AWG 22 to 16, blue 16 to 14, yellow 12 to 10. I've forgotten exactly. I've lost my little reference sheet that told me what size all of these bits of wire are. So yeah, anyway. So the first thing I'm going to do is strip the ends of these. Now, because this may not be the final wiring setup on here, I may end up doing a little bit of work to it. I'm going to leave these wires overly long. Not massively. I'm going to tidy them up under the board where the tracks are. I've got some cable clip holders and some tie wraps, which I'm going to use. Right, but this one here, this is a single feed wire 1. Feed wire 4 has got several. Feed 2 is a short one as well. When I look at the block detection stuff, I'll go into exactly how it's set up. But what I've basically done is every length of wire, this is feed 1, so that goes into here. Every length of wire has its own, so every length of track, get this right, has its own droppers. That's how I've done it. The more observant of you will notice when I come to do section 2, it's only got a brown wire. Doesn't have a blue wire. Section 2 and section 4 are connected together. It's basically like an isolating section. I want to do them differently for the block detection, but it's one big length of track. And because all the blue wires, which is the other rail, are common, what I did is I'll just put a brown wire on and I'll solder the connection for the blue wire. So that's what I've done. This one's number 2. Bring this up here. So I didn't need another blue wire. I could have put a wire on it, but I figured I don't actually need to. I can just do that. I'll solder the fish plate, and it's now electrically bonded without having to put the extra wire in. So I've saved myself one small length of 1602 wire, which is what I use for the droppers. So that's 16 strands, 0.02 millimeter size. As I said, I fold the wire in half, I put it into the terminal, and then it gets crimped. And there is a reason for using crimp terminals. Now, I've seen some people suggest, instead of using a crimp terminal, what you do is you solder it to something. Whether you solder it, you have like a dropper wire, wrap a little bit around it and solder it. And you can do that, and it'll work. I mean, I'm not saying it won't work. Of course it'll work. The problem is when you solder wire, it can become brittle. All of those little individual strands have now got solder around them. And what it means is where the solder ends is now where the wire will bend. And you've concentrated where it'll bend, there's more chance of it snapping. And model railways are known for vibration, which can cause problems. Now, I'm not saying it's going to cause a problem. I'm saying it might. Whereas a crimp, even bent double and held tightly, it can move a little bit. So a little bit more flexible. It's stuff I've picked up. I mean, I used to work on 1-to-1 scale railways. For a few years, I was a technician on the Voyager fleet, and I did some minor work on the Class 800s as well. As a temporary role I sort of had for a while before I moved on to another job. This is I made redundant from the job I was doing, which was like, okay, well, that was that wonderful period of 2020 that most of us like to pretend never happened. So yeah, anyway, that's what it is. Right, now feed 4 has 2 droppers. So what I'm going to do, now I could put these on 2 separate forks and put them in there. What I'm actually going to do is wire them together into one single dropper. So I'm going to do what I did on the other board. I'm going to twist 2 wires together and put them into the same terminal. And that'll do. That's that one and that one. And in this case, this one does have 2 droppers for the blue wires. Reason being here, the join was a bit further along. And basically I thought, well, I'll solder connections if they're near a board edge and it's a small piece. This is a slightly longer piece, so what I'm going to do is not solder the connections. I'm going to put a second feed on it, and they've just come apart again. Wires do that. So yeah, so that was that. But yeah, that's why I use these terminals. I quite like sort of spring clip type terminals and other bits and pieces, and the little bootlace ferrules and things of that nature are quite. That's something I'm quite fond of. The other advantage stuff like this has got over soldering. I mean, here it wouldn't be that much of a problem because obviously the board is on its side. If you come to have to do some maintenance on it, and this was upside down under a board, from personal experience, soldering upside down is something to avoid if you can. I'll try and get this one back into here. There we go, like that. Screw that down. Screwdriver. And then that's all of the brown feed wires. So I'm now going to do the blue ones. Now, there are 4 blue wires. These are going to go into 2 spade terminals, each with 2 wires. And then they're both going into this connector here, 1 each way round. So if I get 2 of these out, what I'll do is have 1 in that way and 1 in that way. So the spades are together. It's just a simple way of doing it. Now, I want to make sure, while I'm doing this, that these wires aren't tangled around each other too badly. And here, it doesn't actually matter which one goes to which, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the outer rail as a pair, and I'm going to do the inner rail as a pair. Just because, really, like I say, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. Anyway, so this is what I'm hoping is going to be a short job video. I may speed some of this up in a minute because, frankly, you don't need to see me doing every individual wire. But this area here is eventually going to have the proper control panel system added. Unlike the other boards where the control panels drop down, obviously this one isn't going to be able to drop down. So what I'm going to do is make it slightly differently. This is going to have its panel under here, its little board controller hardware and so on and so forth will live under here. But it's going to have a little control panel printed that sits on the top, up here just out of shot. And that'll be where its little OLED display lives and where the LEDs will live. So they'll be visible normally. This is sort of the idea. So I thought, yeah, that'll work. I will be putting that wire in a sec. Just doing the final one. And the reason I'm doing this before I do the rest of the wiring, I could have just left this and decided what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to carry on with one of my other hobbies, which is either painting models or posting idiocy on the internet. As various things go like that. But I thought, what I'm going to do, I'm going to come down here because this is upright, it's on the side, and it's going to get in the way if it's here while I do the rewiring. I'm going to come down here, get this wired up, and get it installed back onto the layout. Basically, to get it out of the way, there's the idea. And again, crimping. You can get crimping kits on eBay. Fairly straightforward. You get, there'll be a crimping tool and a big box of all the different crimps you might want to use. And you think, brilliant. Yep, I'll use that. And they are pretty good. I'm going to say they're a pretty good way of starting. What you find later is you've used up a chunk of the certain types of crimp, and then you just go online and you just order more of that specific type. And then life is good. Right, that's going to need slackening off a bit more to fit that in. Do that. Now the other one here is this is a race for, am I going to finish this before my battery and my screwdriver goes flat? Right, so that's those two wired in there together. So I shall now connect those. There we go. Right, the only thing that's left to do now is tidying the wires up. Now, as I said, over here, under this bit, I'm not actually too bothered. It'd be quite nice to have them tied down. So I'm probably going to. Now, I've got somewhere, let me just have a quick check where it is. I have, he said, somewhere, It's a big bag. I've got a big somewhere around here. I've got a big bag of plastic bases for holding cable ties and cable ties. I'll be back in a sec. And back. That's what I was looking for. Bag of those. These hold cable ties. Put a screw through the middle of them. Screw it into the wood. And then run a cable tie through it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to use 2 of them. One either side. So I'm going to put one here. Into about the right place. So just there we are, that's that one. And then what I can do is take a cable tie out of a little bag. I've got lots of these things. This is the sort of stuff that I get on eBay. I tend to buy in bulk. Yeah, like I'll buy 7 or 8 bags of them at once. Give me 1,000 cable ties. Sometimes eBay, sometimes AliExpress. It just depends where I can get a decent price, really. The purpose of which is just to make sure I've got some of these things in, because they are remarkably useful. So that's going to hold all the brown wires. It'll be the same with the blue wires over here. Just clip that. Hint: when clipping the wires short, be careful not to cut the wire. Ask me how I know that. Anyway, never mind. It got fixed in the end. It turned out all right. So I'm going to put some of these over here. Now what I'm going to do after I've done this, I'm going to fix wires at the other ends. The idea being, if I've got any slack, I can coil it up, tie wrap that, well, I'll leave that one loose. That to bite there. Because this bit sits above a section of board that doesn't have any rails under it. So I know where I want all the slack to be, and it's over here. So that, again, can go into there. That's through there. Comes around. This is actually one thing I'm very bad at on this layout, is cable management. It's something I need to work on, and when I'm doing the rewiring, I will be. Now this is all, this is all loose, but it's keeping it there. Right, so the next one, I'm going to start, just rotate you slightly, over this side with this feed. Now, what I'm wanting to do is bring it up here, but it needs to be held about there. So the way to do it is next to it. And the reason I'm going next to it, as I say, this is thin ply. This is 6mm. So I'm using 16mm screws to go through these cable clips. So it goes through the clip, goes through that. They're going to be too long. I need smaller than that. I need 10mm. I've got some 10mm screws somewhere. Where are they? Got some 10mm screws in a bag, because I needed these for something else. What I want is a screw that doesn't, as I sort of said, for poor safety reasons, I don't want screws that stick out the top of the board. Now, even a 10mm screw, you'll think, well, that's going to go through 6mm ply and poke out. Yeah, it will. However, yeah, that'll hold. What I'm doing is I'm doing it under the rails, which means I've then got 5mm of XPS available to me and some other bits. So I'm just going to come over here and do this one over here, and I'll show you in a sec. Now, my first thought was hot gluing this. Oh, yeah, that'll work. Hot glue the wires. Yeah, again, I'm doing it on its side rather than flat, which is a bit... So what I shall do is tie wrap through there. That's going to come up around those two and just around that one feed. I'm not doing this for the others. The other feed will be done in its own sweet time next to it. And again, all that is about is keeping these wires up away from the layout, away from the track that sits underneath it. That's all I'm trying to do here. So I'll put another couple of, let's have another couple of screws out the bag. I'm going to do another one for the feed down there. So I'm going to fit these, and then I'm going to be back. Okay, back. Now, I ended up removing the 2 cable clips there. They weren't, strictly speaking, needed. Hopefully you can see all of this. I'm hoping this will hold it all clear of the rails. If it doesn't, I'm going to come out with some tape. So the next bit is this. Into focus. This is like a bus rail strip, and it slots into the top of that connector there. And we'll basically connect them all together. And I'm going to leave one of them loose. And I'm going to tighten the others up. And I'm going to leave one of them loose because it's going to get a flying lead added. This terminal here isn't being used. So I'm just going to knit those up because, like I said, if you don't, you'll find the little screws are everywhere. Right. The next step is the flying leads, which are going to go from here to the board below. So what I need to do is come over here, grab my 2 reels of 1602 wire, and sit them somewhere behind where they're going to be long. I'm not cutting this wire just yet. What I'm going to do is put a crimp on the end of this, connect it, but I'm not cutting it off the reel yet. Basically because I don't know how long it needs to be. So I'm just going to do that. That's going to go in here. These are the feeds. Now, some of you are thinking, 1602 is a bit thin for a feed, isn't it? And you're correct. It's going to be 3202 eventually. I'm using this now. This is a temporary wire. And at the moment, I'm not going to be running more than 1 train. So it's plenty just to connect down to the board below it. So do that. Crimp that. Make sure that's connected. And that is going to go, get it the right way around, into there. And just set the screwdriver right, put that in there. So that wire will now feed all of the blue wires. So I need to do the same with the brown wire. I'm going to make these a little bit longer because, in fact, I'm going to make it longer and I'm going to put it. I'm actually going to put it under where this bit of the board's going to go because that'll help. It should keep it out of the way a little bit. So I'm going to sort this out, do this other one. So again, with my trusty little wire snips. Yeah, I've had quite a bit of post turn up. I've got the servo motors I now need for the initial points and what have you. And I've been having a little bit of a think. The original plan was to do another track order and get the first part of the station track down before I flip the boards over and wire them all up. I'm actually having a bit of a rethink on that. And I think what I'm going to do, and call a bit more of that, is get the stuff I've got laid working. I've been thinking again on the uncoupling. Very thanks to whoever commented in the comments on Digital Trains channel. They've got a lovely little uncoupler that moves a flap up and down with a servo. I was originally going to have, so the track's going this way, a flap that dropped because I've got limited height clearance. But I suspect I can get away with one that just does that and just drops away a little bit. Doesn't have to drop away too far. And I think that'll be a lot easier to build. So that's what I'm going to do. Right. This is now wired. So what I'm going to do now, and you might find this vaguely amusing as I try to get this in. If I hold that there, I'm going to take that piece of wood out of the way. Because it's dry, but it's not fully hardened yet. Now I'm going to take these pieces of wood out of the way, which are what I had it sat on while I was painting it, because I put it over here to paint it. This bit of track If you'll excuse me 1 second with the noise. Yeah, before I put the upper deck back on, I'm just going to run the rail cleaner over it and clean it off a bit. These loop rails aren't going to be getting tested today because I'm not putting the middle board back in. I am going to run the train over these ones, however. The way the points... I'm going to have to run a train over them, but I'm going to have to do it by hand because the frogs for these points won't be powered up. Forgot about that. Right. Anyway, I'm going to remove these two clamps that are holding this board. Assuming I've got enough slack to take these with me. Keep hold of that. It's a bit falling over. Back there. Right, so this board I now need to pick up. It's not very heavy, thankfully. I need to swing it around. Rest it slightly while I move my hand around. So that section goes... Needless to say, it's bumping into everything at the moment, so never mind. Right, that bit locks in. This bit here drops down and still needs a little bit of persuasion at this end, and I've just kicked another piece of wood over down on the bottom. Never mind. Let me just do this. Further than that. Cross a little bit more. It's now dropped a little bit too far. Never mind. Now, this fairly obviously is a problem because this is supposed to come out and go back in really easily. Just like that. I have a solution. These two supports, so there's one here, are cut. Next time this board's off, I'm going to cut them a little bit more so this board slides that way a little bit more. But that is now back in. So I'm just going to run a wagon. In fact, if I just move you to... hello. I think where to put you. If I put that there, what I can do is use a test wagon. And all this is for is... Right. That seems to have lifted slightly. So even though that is set on alignment dowels, might have a problem there, but we shall see. It's lifted up a little bit there. I need to... There we are. That's sat better now. And then flip you around quickly. Is the same here. And obviously there's lots of other stuff sitting on top of the rails over here. So just push it fast enough to get it to go over the join. Right. Okay, that bit's done. So what I now need to do is move some of this rubbish out of the way. Such is life at Leopard Street. Right, I'm going to shift some of this rubbish. The reason being, when I bring the Scotsman up here, she's coming up in reverse, but this is actually going to push her train quite a bit onto this bit of track. which is interesting because it'll be the first time a train has moved on that part of the layout under its own power. She's not going to get very far. I'm hoping over here you can see there's a big gap there. I had to slide these boards that way, slide that one back. So, yeah. Right, so that's that. The other thing I need to do... the clearance under there is fine. I don't need to test that. So, what I need to do now is pause briefly. I need to switch the layout on. I need to check bits of it still work. And I have the G5 and the Scotsman that we ran last episode to this bit of track are now going to come up and run on this bit, which has got quite a kink there. One thing to note quickly, that inner curve goes not quite to 18 inches, but when you look at it from this angle, you can't tell, even as things are going around it. I could have eased it out a little bit more. I didn't cut the wood very accurately, which is part of the problem. The track's also, if you notice, the track spacing is increasing as it goes around the corner. This is to make sure that stuff here can get past itself. So I'm just going to give this bit a quick rub down as well. Just because of the problems I had getting trains to start last time. I'm just going to do that. Push Mr. G5 back a little bit. Just clean this bit and this bit. All this is going to get painted at some point. However, I am going to do a lot of run testing first. Right. I'm going to power up. I'll be back in a minute. We're going to move some trains. Okay, so first test. The G5 with her little coaches and a brake van she's picked up from somewhere. There she comes, coming round here nicely, approaching the new part of the track. Will she run on it? This is the key question here. And she does. Now that's nice to know. I'll bring her up. This is onto all of it. And tell her to stop there. So that is then whistle because I can. Right. Here's a sec. And then a second throttle, which is going to pick up the Flying Scotsman, who is my sort of go-to test train for a lot of this sort of stuff, and bring her up. I've moved the second microphone, so it's round there, so it should pick up nicely. Bring her onto here. And she's running quite nicely as well. Tell her to stop. So, with that, see, she's actually on this board here, not far off point work. This board isn't powered yet. That's that. So I'm going to move those two back down because basically I want them out of the way. So let's go with G5 first. Why not? I've got them both queued up. So she can into reverse. And back she goes. And this is really just getting her out of the way. This will eventually be the entrance track, so she's now running the wrong way. JMR is picking up the fact that she's on that little stub. Obviously the new board, it doesn't have any detection sensors yet, so it's not going to do a great deal. Let's get her running back down here. Get her back into the scenic bit where she's out of the way. And stop before she runs into the D49. Scotsman also into reverse. Sorry, into forwards now. This is the departure track, so off she can rumble at reasonable speed. Back down to being parked. So, Well, that's it for this video. All my objective was to get that board powered. Yes, it's not on the detection system yet. I've got some bits and pieces I need to build before I can do that. Before I can do those, I've got a rewiring project. Now that is going to be the next video. It's basically going to be the wiring on the layout, the mistakes I've made with it, what I'm going to do to correct it, and then hopefully from then I can have slightly more reliable running. However, to test that, I've got a lot of dropper wires just hanging down. You might be able to see some through there just hanging all around here, just hanging down. So actually testing the layout is going to require me to do a little bit more. This is going to be a case of powering up, powering on the servos, reconnecting the servos which currently aren't powered, and seeing whether I fixed the little issue with yeah. Anyway, oh yeah, and I've been 3D printing a house, but that's for something else. So with that, I'm going to leave it for this one. This is Friday, so this will be going out Saturday. Tuesday's video, which is going to be my Saturday evening and Sunday, is going to consist of, I say, the rewiring project, which is hopefully going to deal with the reliability issue I've had once and for all. So, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will catch you all in the next one. Thank you very much, and goodbye.